Ruth Hunt from Cardiff became head of Stonewall in 2014. In an article for BuzzFeed, Hunt revealed that she had studied Judith Butler in university. In 2015, Hunt received an honorary fellowship from Cardiff University. That same year, Stonewall received a grant of $100,000 from the Arcus Foundation to be trans-inclusive. Jon Stryker, CEO of Arcus Foundation, explained the precondition of being awarded a grant.
We also required that all grantees have a board-approved non-discrimination policy that includes sexual orientation and gender identity. We believe it's critical for all our grantees to show an organizational dedication to LGBT rights, officially and in writing.
Stryker is heir to a multi-billion-dollar medical corporation. The Stryker Corporation make money from gender reassignment surgery. In 2017, Stonewall announced that trans women are women. There was to be no debate. In the same year, Stonewall changed the definition of transphobia on their website. Their definition was transphobia, the fear or dislike of someone based on the fact they are trans, including denying their gender identity or refusing to accept it. Unilaterally, Stonewall declared that telling the truth was hate speech. In 2020, Jeremy Miles, then Consul General and Minister for European Transition, and Jane Hutt, Deputy Minister and Chief Whip, published a written statement of support for the transgender community. They wrote, "We believe trans women are women, trans men are men, and non-binary identities are valid." First Minister Mark Drakeford affirmed it.
Well, Llywydd, my starting point is the same as Penny Mordaunt, the UK Minister responsible at the time, who said that the UK government's starting point was that transgender women are women. And that's my starting point in this debate.
Deputy Minister for Social Partnership Hannah Blythyn emphasised it.
We recommit ourselves to supporting trans and non-binary people, and our starting point is that trans men are men, trans women are women, and non-binary identities are valid.
There was to be no debate. In response to an email expressing concern of the Welsh Government direction of travel, the Welsh Government Equality and Human Rights Division wrote,
"Thank you for your email on 20th of March 2023 to the Welsh Government Equality and Human Rights Division with regards to the response to your original email on the 10th of February 2023. I have been asked to reply. Trans people today are being subjected to a barrage of hate-fueled tirades. Extending rights for one group does not mean eroding rights from another. We do not believe improving rights for trans women will damage rights for cisgender women and girls. Our trans communities are hurting. They're afraid and they're experiencing harm. As a society, we can and must do better than this to support our trans citizens. As a government, we are clear that trans men are men, trans women are women, and non-binary identities are valid. We have already addressed your questions on trans women and predatory male violence. We believe it is important to keep in mind that trans people are not responsible for the behaviour of predatory and abusive men. The issue is with predatory men and not trans people. And action taken to tackle this behaviour does not require to impinge on the rights of trans people. We must avoid plunging further into the often cruel and hostile debate surrounding the rights of trans people, and the attempt to insinuate, directly or otherwise, that they are somehow predatory and a danger to the public. Yours sincerely, Equality and Human Rights Division.
The Welsh Government argument is that trans people are vulnerable. Therefore, trans women are women, trans men are men, and non-binary identities are valid. As Matt Greenough will presumably recognise, this is a logical fallacy. Whether trans people are vulnerable or not has no bearing on whether or not they're literally the opposite sex. Trans women are not women biologically, and as confirmed by the Supreme Court judgment in April 2025, trans women are not women under the Equality Act. The only way that trans women are women is if we change the definition of what a woman is, the goal of Judith Butler, which the Welsh Government no doubt recognise. As Butler writes, politically securing greater freedoms for women requires that we rethink the category of women to include those new possibilities. The historical meaning of gender can change as its norms are reenacted, refused, or recreated. In the updated Gender Online Toolkit, still available for schools, Reynolds links to an article by Meg John Barker. According to Wikipedia, Barker has written and or edited some of the first academic collections on open non-monogamy, bisexuality, non-binary gender, and BDSM, that's bondage, domination, and sadomasochism. The article was titled A Trans Review of 2017, the Year of Transgender Moral Panic. The first cause of moral panic that was listed was a documentary, Transgender Kids, Who Knows Best, and explored the work of experienced psychotherapist Ken Zucker, who was sacked from his position at a Toronto clinic under pressure of trans activists. Zucker did not practice affirmative therapy. The program makers interviewed Zucker's colleague, Devita Singh, who undertook a study of over 100 boys treated at the clinic. It was found that 88% eventually desisted. It was this documentary that Ruth Hunt herself had criticised. Hunt wrote, "Trans children can't be cured, and any doctor who tries to should be condemned. It is cruel. It belongs in the age when people try to convert gay people." Ken Zucker has had a career working with individuals with a gender identity disorder. Ruth Hunt has a degree in English. In 2018, Stonewall named the Welsh Assembly as the top LGBT employer. In 2019, Dentons collaborated with Stonewall and New York University to develop a guide for employers about the data privacy implications of collecting LGBT data on employees within Europe. In that same year, a report was produced by Dentons in association with the Thomson Reuters Foundation and IGLIO, the International Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender, Queer and Intersex Youth and Student Organisation. The report, which argued that the recognition of a child's self-declared gender identity was a human right, was titled Only Adults? Good Practices in Legal Gender Recognition for Youth. A number of NGOs from across Europe contributed to the report. The only NGO that wished to remain anonymous was from the UK. The report advised.
Right to development of the child. States must protect the physical, mental, moral, social, cultural, spiritual development of children. For example, states should take action against parents who are obstructing the free development of a young trans person's identity in refusing to give parental authorization when required.
The report also recommended good practices for advocacy.
Target youth politicians. Activists found it particularly helpful to get youth wings political parties on side, as main wings of political parties are often keen to listen and take the views of their younger counterparts seriously. In some cases, activists found it useful to make the point that youth politicians are the senior politicians of the future, and that age changes that they are in favour of will inevitably be the policies of the future and are more likely to be on the right side of history. Some campaigns found that allowing youth politicians to advocate for legal gender recognition to be extended to minors was compelling, perhaps because they are well placed to empathise with the situation of their peers.
In 2018, a meeting of a Woman's Place UK, due to take place in the Mercure Hotel in Cardiff, was cancelled after protests from trans activists. Chair of the Welsh Government's LGBTQ+ expert panel, Lou Thomas, said,
"This is a peace gathering called in response to a Woman's Place coming to Cardiff. We are seeing an increase in prejudice against the trans community. You just have to put the word TERF into social media to see it."
Former Plaid Cymru member of the Senedd, Helen Mary Jones, spoke at a rearranged venue.
Anybody who tries to tell you that Women's Place UK is a transphobic movement, I can tell you now that I would not be in this room if that was the case, and I'm sure that's true of every single one of us here. But that doesn't mean to say that over time I haven't experienced disquiet. I became concerned in my previous role about the numbers of young, non-gender conforming women, the girls that we would have called when I was young tomboys, who were feeling so uncomfortable with themselves that they felt that the only way to achieve that comfort, they couldn't be happy to be gender non-conforming girls, the only way that they could achieve that comfort with themselves was to transition to the opposite sex.
Helen Mary Jones's association with the Woman's Place UK and the LGBT Alliance was met with outrage by trans activists, including the non-binary mayor of Bangor, Owen Hurcum. The ferocity of the backlash from their young members resulted in a surprising commitment from Plaid Cymru. All candidates who stood for the party in the 2021 Senedd election had training from Gendered Intelligence. Jay Stewart from Gendered Intelligence explains how Judith Butler taught the idea that gender identity is not innate, it's created from the very act of expressing our gender.
The other great thinker that has been useful is Nietzsche, and he said there is no doer behind the doing. So this is a little bit more difficult to comprehend and certainly put into place within everyday life. But if I was to say to you, I'm walking across the stage, you're not allowed to walk too far, you can only walk within this. But I'm walking, rather than say I, who is already here, am going about walking, the walking, through the act of walking, produces me as a person, as an I. So it is through the action that we become who we are. And this idea was taken by one of the greatest thinkers within gender theory, Judith Butler, who said there is no gender identity behind the expression of gender. So rather than I am already a gender that goes on to express that gender, the expression produces me as a gendered person. And in this is really, I think, interesting, because we need to move away from a classification or a categorization of gender and into a space that allows for us to describe our gender expression like a tagging system. so that we can take on tags, useful words that describe those expressions, and we can have as many tags as we want, and we can take them off when they're proving to be less useful, rather than then be there fixed and permanent and firmed up. Because if we hold on to becoming our gender, if we hold on to this idea of expressing gender more centrally within our everyday life, we can pay closer attention to the systems of power at play. Okay, because the possibilities of expression, they're political. So who gets to express themselves in a particular way is political. There continues to be enormous restrictions on everybody with regards to how they express themselves. Who gets to be a nurse? Who gets to be a politician? Who gets to wear a dress? Who gets to earn more money? Who gets to cry? What is allowed and what is not allowed is a matter of politics. This isn't just about stereotyping. This is about reducing people to the sex that they were assigned at birth. This is about reducing people and restricting people based on their genitalia. Okay, it's absurd, and it's oppressive, and it's dangerous. We need to move away from a model of biological determinism, away from saying, it is innate, I didn't choose to be trans. It's not about choosing or not choosing. This is about agency.
Many people have a different opinion. As philosopher Rebecca Reilly Cooper writes, you do not need to have a deep, internal, essential experience of gender to be free to dress how you like, behave how you like, work how you like, love who you like. You do not need to show that your personality is feminine for it to be acceptable for you to enjoy cosmetics, cookery and crafting. You do not need to be gender queer to queer gender. The solution to an oppressive system that puts people into pink and blue boxes is not to create more and more boxes that are any colour but blue or pink. The solution is to tear down the boxes altogether. All Plaid candidates for the Senedd and the Police Commissioners' elections in 2021 signed a commitment saying that they believe that all people should have the inalienable right to determine and live in accordance with their own gender identity. This should include the right to access to services and facilities in line with their gender identity. This is, of course, as confirmed by the Supreme Court, unlawful. The Dentons Document advises.
5. Get ahead of the government agenda and the media story. In many of the NGO advocacy campaigns that we studied, there were clear benefits where NGOs managed to get ahead of the government and publish progressive legislative proposals before the government had time to develop their own. NGOs need to intervene early in the legislative process and ideally before it has even started. This will give them far greater ability to shape the government agenda and the ultimate proposal than if they intervene after the government has already started to develop its own proposal. Where NGOs fail to intervene early, the ultimate gender recognition legislation may be far less progressive than activists would like.
In their Service Delivery Toolkit from 2021, Stonewall wrote, "Gender identity in the law. The descriptive term used within the Equality Act is gender reassignment, but this is a very narrow definition of what it means to be trans. Going above and beyond the law, the most inclusive services consider gender identity to be a protected characteristic. In the 2022 Welsh Government submission for the Stonewall Workplace Equality Index scheme, the Welsh Government made clear that the HR policy treats gender identity and not gender reassignment as a protected characteristic. The submission also states,
gender-specific multi-user toilets will continue to be used in offices, and we trust staff to decide which gender-specific toilet is suitable for them. Our transitioning policy guidelines state, employees undergoing transitioning should use the facilities of their acquired gender from the first day that they present in that gender. Employees cannot be asked to use alternative facilities, such as the accessible toilet.
The Welsh Government have been going above and beyond the law. Going above and beyond the law is unlawful. The Dentons Document advises,
use human rights as a campaign point. Based on our research, human rights arguments have been instrumental to the success of several campaigns for more progressive gender recognition laws. It is unclear exactly why this approach has been successful. It could be that the political stigma of a human rights violation and the resultant international scrutiny is a factor at play. Another possibility is that the approach humanizes trans people and makes their situation more relatable.
Professor Reynolds works very closely with Brook, a charity whose Welsh branch Brook Cymru work in Welsh schools. In 2019, Kirsty Williams, Lynne Neagle and Jeremy Miles were present at the launch of Brook Cymru in the Norwegian church in Cardiff Bay. Professor Reynolds spoke at the launch. Dougie Boyd from Brook, self-declared safeguarding expert, was very supportive of the Welsh Government's decision to remove the parental right to withdraw.
In no other part of the curriculum do we allow parents to withdraw young people from education that is evidence-based, education that is facts-based, and education that we have proven that they have a right to access through things like the Covenant on Children's Rights from the UN.
Brook tell children that gender is not a synonym for sex. Brook tell children that the idea that there are only two genders is a mainly Western cultural idea. This is a lie, but the impact of this teaching on a generation of Welsh school children has been profound.
I've also been told that you take gender too literally. You sort of say, back when I was younger, no one cared. It's like, yeah, they did. Of course they did. They just didn't speak out about it because they were scared, because there was discrimination that was much worse than it is now.
In their annual report for 2023, it states,
Brook and our sector partners are witnessing and experiencing increasing attacks on relationships and sex education, fueled by misinformation and exacerbated by stigma. Specifically, we are seeing threats to the rights of trans and non-binary people, as well as young people's rights to confidentiality and consent to medical treatment. Brook is resolute in its commitment to challenging inequality and standing for and with those affected. We will not rest until all young people, especially those that face additional barriers, enjoy equitable access to RSE.
They did flag one success in Wales. Brook won the contract to provide teacher training to schools in the Central South Consortium. Head of Business Development at Brook is Kelly Harris. Kelly Harris undertook a master's at Cardiff University under the supervision of Professor Reynolds. Kelly Harris does not believe that parents should be automatically informed if a child changes gender in school. In December 2022, Harris was engaged in a Twitter exchange with current Education Minister Lynne Neagle, celebrating the PCP Wales court case loss. In June 2021, Lynne Neagle, then Deputy Minister for Mental Health, was a guest speaker at an RSE Day for all primary, secondary and special schools in Wales, run by Professor Reynolds, Esther McGeaney and Leanne Coll.
Okay, welcome back everybody. It's 12:30. Before we move into our breakout sessions where teachers will be sort of sharing with you their learning journey so far in how they're preparing for the new RSE in Wales, I'm absolutely delighted to introduce you, not that she needs introductions, to Lynne Neagle, Deputy Minister for Mental Health and Wellbeing. So Lynne, over to you and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you very much, EJ, and I'm absolutely delighted to attend today as Deputy Minister for Mental Health and to get the opportunity to say a few words at your groundbreaking Transforming Relationship and Sexuality Education Conference. This is the first such conference in Wales, I know, and it's fantastic to know that there's such a wide range of primary, secondary and special schools attending today. The conference is also really timely as the Welsh Government's draft guidance on RSE and the draft RSE code are currently out for consultation, and I would encourage all of you to feed your views in to this vital consultation. As the new Deputy Minister for Mental Health and Wellbeing in Wales, I just wanted to say a few words about why the delivery of high quality, inclusive RSE is crucial for the wellbeing of children and young people in Wales. I believe RSE is a child's right, which is why I'm so pleased that the Senedd enshrined that right in law through the Curriculum and Assessment Wales Bill that we passed shortly before the Senedd elections. Empowering children and giving them agency in their lives is crucial for their well-being. RSE really is children's rights in action.
In a book titled Schools as Queer Transformative Spaces, in a chapter titled Rebel Becomings, Queering School Spaces with Young People, Leanne Coll writes,
"It is impossible to ignore the increasing role that queer and feminist activism is playing in schools. Programs and resources such as Gender in Wales are some international examples of how explicit post-structural queer and feminist new materialist frameworks are being used in schools to queer school spaces and educational experiences. This work highlights the significance of student-led initiatives in destabilizing hetero and cisgender normativity."
The purpose of Professor Reynolds' work is to create student trans activists